Newsfirst, face to face with Charlene Benedict.
Hello there, very good evening and welcome to another edition of Face to Face. Now, while all of us are very busy discussing the political landscape in Sri Lanka, whether or not democracy is secured in Sri Lanka, whether or not national security has been ensured in Sri Lanka, one thing that we tend to forget is the fact that Sri Lanka is just coming out of an economic crisis. And in a very few short weeks, the appropriation bill for the year 2026 will be debated in Parliament. And this is, of course, the budget for the year 2026. It will be passed in Parliament. Now, ask yourselves this question. How much do you really know about the details of this budget that is to be passed, or in this case, to be presented to Parliament? What do you think should be the main concerns of the government? Now, these are matters that, unfortunately, are not discussed too broadly in the political discourse here in Sri Lanka at this moment. And we thought it was correct and timely to shed some light on these matters. And we've got with us, of course, Riyad Riffai, Director of Advocata, an expert on the subject, to discuss these matters with us today. A very good evening and welcome to the program today.
Thank you, Charlene, and very good evening to you as well.
So, Riyad, just to start things off now, a professional like yourself who, you know, is in touch with Sri Lanka's economic developments and, of course, is very well up to date on what's happening as far as Sri Lanka's economy is concerned, would have certain details about the appropriation bill for the year 2026, the budget, what the preparations are, what the plan is like. The general public doesn't really have all of this information available. They don't have time to really go through this information, to research this information, of course, because it's a very niche subject, of course, that requires a certain level of expertise. So to start things off, could you break down in very simple terms what sort of information is available to the general public of Sri Lanka as of now with regard to the appropriation bill for the year 2026, aka the budget for 2026?
So thing is, Charlene, you know, the information that is actually available at large is very limited.
Okay.
Because normal tradition is like, if you go back to the previous governments and all that, what happens is generally they put out some start. Now, for example, you get the chambers. Sometimes what happens is they have pre-budget meetings.
So there's no official document that is put out. It's just discussions and what you kind of deduce out of the statements made by government officials.
That's right. So the thing is, especially with this budget, and especially I think with this government, they are very tight-lipped about a lot of things, and the budget has been no exception.
Okay.
So currently there is nothing much out, because one thing is, normally what happens is the two people who actually lead the budget is in Sri Lanka's case, it's a deputy finance minister, because always the portfolio of the finance ministry is held by the president, and you get the finance secretary. Okay. And Sri Lanka, the finance secretary plays a big role. So currently what has happened is the finance secretary hasn't put anything out. Only thing what we can think about is, I mean, before even going to that, the annual budget is a major financial statement of the government that basically paves the path.
Okay.
Now, normally what happens is when you make the budget, one thing is the short-term goals, that is the fiscal side and all that, what they're trying to do, and then you have the medium and the long-term goal.
Okay.
The long-term goal is something that sometimes gets spoken in large but never gets done.
Okay.
So if you take Sri Lanka, mostly a lot of things that have happened is actually mostly it has been short, at best medium. So that has been the indication. But
one of the reasons for the fact that the long-term goals really don't pan out is because the government doesn't really last that long in power.
That is one thing. The second thing is, that is one thing. Now, for example, if you take other countries, for example, if you take, just take India, they have the national planning, irrespective of what, most of the planning at the top level, which is done by the bureaucrats, no matter which government comes, generally they carry it through. For example, things like, for example, taxation, maybe on what you call public health, let's say public education.
There are no drastic differences.
There are no drastic differences. So in Sri Lanka, what happens is one thing is one government comes, basically governments don't last that long, as you rightly said. And what happens is the next government comes, either they try to bring their own spin on the whole thing, or they simply just discontinue it. They're saying, okay, this doesn't work. This was not part of our policy paper that we have done, and we need to kind of change this, and this is our vision. So the policy inconsistency has been a massive issue in Sri Lanka, and that has been an issue which basically has killed and striped a lot of the FDI also, right? So the current situation is we don't know. Or at best we can guess. We will know for sure on the coming Friday.
Okay. So I've seen Advocata also host several pre-budget almost discussions on social media platforms, even on large-scale media networks like MTV, NBC. This time, none of that has really panned out. You haven't planned anything of the sort?
We actually did. I mean, the thing is, we had a discussion. I think Murtaza went and spoke about the things that should happen.
Okay.
So it's basically on the tax policy. These are the main things, because in government, for example, the budget is it's income and the expense. So the thing is, then how you keep the deficit at the minimum. Now, I think now unlike previous budgets, let's say 5 years ago, now there's a huge IMF component that is put into it. So that has to be managed. So what I think the IMF has said, basically they have set guidelines. For example, I think the deficit you have to keep it at 5 or below. Certain expenses they want removed. They want more revenue to come in, and things like that. Now the question is, currently, if you look at the revenue side, now that's the main challenge for the government, because one thing in Sri Lanka, revenue is a big issue.
Okay.
So this year has been a very good year for the government, because the reason is, one thing is the VAT went up, right? So that is very easy, and things like VAT is direct taxes, very easy to collect.
Okay.
It's very efficient, because you don't need an army of people going after people to get the money. It just comes into the treasury's kitty. Then the other one is basically the personal income taxes have gone up. Excise has gone up. So the system also has got a little bit, you have to give the credit to the government also. They have got the system very efficient. I mean, to a certain extent, the efficiency has really gone up. But the issue is the taxes which have got a large component of that has come from the customs, from the gates, right? So continuing that next year, I don't know how they are going to do and how they are going to keep the estimates on that, because this year they have basically hit their targets. Because if you look at the three things the government needs to do, one thing is the fiscal side, which I think they are on track.
Okay.
Right. Then you have the other one is managing the expenses. Okay. Which again, I think there are problems there, because one thing is, if you look at the state sector, a lot of the money, the wages have gone up. Right, and we are not sure if they are making provisions for another additional. And the other issue with the government is, if they are going to aggressively make any recruitments into the state sector. Okay. Right, because when you make that, what happens? It's not only the wages. It's the pensions, and it just keeps on going. And the other factor is, because if you look at the pensions also, it's a huge issue. That's why I'm saying the long-term thing is something the government normally in Sri Lanka, they don't follow through. Because the issue is, if you go through the pensions, what happens is, currently, as you know, our population is declining, right? The aging population is going up, right? And the people who actually make kids, the people between probably from the age of maybe 22 to maybe about 40, they have left the country. I mean, during the crisis and all that, there's been mass migration. I mean, and that's the category that actually brings in money for the government coffers, because those are the people who will make money, who will go and buy a car, who will go and make a house, who have they have set targets for their future, and for that they will work towards that. Okay. Now that most productive sectors, I mean, in large, most of the professionals who had the opportunity to go and who had no reason to stay here have gone. So that's a huge issue. And the elderly population age, because generally our healthcare system is good, and generally if you look at the elderly population of Sri Lanka also, generally they live a pretty clean life. So they are, on average, their life expectancy has been going up. So under this whole mechanism, how is the future population going to finance the pensions in the future? So that's where the reforms have to come. So, for example, the government won't be able to afford pensions in the future without and taxation also. Okay, so to pay for the pensions, government has to get the money from somewhere. No? So where is the money going to come? Because currently, if you look at all sectors, they have almost maxed out. Right. So what are the new taxations they are going to bring?
There was an allegation that the government is really not spending as the allocated amounts that they've allocated in the 2024 budget. Is that true?
It's a concern, because the reason is because normally if you make allocation now, for example, that has been a scenario where, I mean, this has happened in the past also, not particularly with this government also. But the thing is, they have been collecting money and they have been budgeting for it. And the budget, what happens is certain things they should have spent, they have not spent. Right.
I remember there was concerns about the education sector budget not being spent quite substantially.
Exactly. And I think it has happened a little bit with the healthcare system also. So what happens is then there are other sectors which are overspent. All right. For example, a normal candidate is defense. Right. So then what happens is basically the money that goes to basically to make society better or for the economy to grow. For example, if public transportation, if healthcare, if education goes, it's a contributing factor to the economy, which means the economy will get better, economy will get more efficient because you are getting healthier, more educated people into the economy and who will be more disciplined also. So when that doesn't go in, what happens is on the other side, when it goes into something like some other thing, for example, let's say defense or something that the government wants to spend its money on, the productivity that needs to come into the economy doesn't come. Then it becomes a factor of growth. Now, for example, you bought a very good fact about, we have been collecting money. Now, this year, even the government has been going around saying, this is a record year of, government revenue. We are doing very well. Yes, definitely. But the problem is, where is that money getting spent? One thing is, obviously, there is money that you have to do debt servicing, which is going according to a schedule, right? That is given by the IMF, and they're following that. There's no problem there, right? At least for the moment. But the issue is, they are not the money that needs to go into, for example, things like capital expenditure. Like, for example, let's say hospitals, let's say schools, let's say upgrading the healthcare sector, bringing in, let's say, going more with technology and education. Things like that, the investments haven't gone in, because certain investments the government has to lead.
So when you say the investments haven't gone in now, there is a massive drive as far as digitization of Sri Lankan economy is concerned. Are you saying that the investment into that isn't enough?
No, the thing is, no, the whole thing about the digitization thing, they're only talking about it now. Maybe they're planning for it, but still it hasn't got done. I mean, if you remember, like a couple of weeks ago, most of the government websites were down.
Okay.
Right.
But as far as, comparing the current situation to maybe the situation a year ago, right now, a little bit more than a year ago, I think. Right now, if there's a spot fine, you can pay off GovPay. I think there are multiple advertisements that are running on television regarding, the different services that you can pay for off GovPay, which is quite convenient. And in addition to that, recently speaking at an event, the Chief Justice of Sri Lanka said that, digitization of the court system in Sri Lanka is going to come online in maybe a month or 2 months. 50 courthouses fully digitized, online filing, the works.
Right.
So maybe the investment has gone in, but they've not been, very loud about it. Is that a possibility?
There is a possibility of that, but more than that, what I think is, now, for example, if you look at government investments, now, for example, there are things there where the private sector won't spend. For example, the roads, right? For example, public transport. When you take public transport, you get the buses and you get the trains. Then public healthcare. The issue with that is, now, for example, let's just imagine if there is a super public transport system in the country, let's say a superb train network, right? Just imagine how much of time people are going to save, right? Then, for example, all the inefficiencies that go into the delays and all that won't happen. That kind of investments have to go in.
So when you say that not enough has been invested, are you saying that the amount is not enough? Or I don't understand that point, because sometimes, say for example, something just on average, maybe you could spend 1,000 rupees and get a certain service,
right?
But you could also maybe spend 100 rupees and get an even better service
Right.
if you do it properly, or if you go to a person
Absolutely.
who is not overcharging you.
Absolutely.
So what is the issue there? As in, is it that we are not spending enough, or the result isn't enough?
No,
What's
the thing
issue?
is, the thing is, any government that has come, right? Generally, they have like a landmark project that they do,
Okay.
right? Now, for example, if you look at 2 governments ago, it was a road network,
Okay.
right? I mean, even though there were a lot of questions about the expenses and the amounts that went into the roads, but still they're still there.
There's something to show.
Pardon?
There's something to show for.
Something to show for, right? So it has to be something like that. It has to be something landmark to show that, okay, we went and did this. Now, for example, if you go back, President Premadasa, he had the
Housing projects.
housing projects. Then he had the apparel. He basically bought the apparel sector up. I mean, the apparel sector currently is running on the backbone of what he did. Right, because he bought it out. So thing is, you need to get into a sector like that. Now, for example, if you're going into IT and all that, make that into a hub. Just don't do these small projects and say we are digitizing the economy. No. Completely go and take it overhaul, have a master plan, and plus they have the people. I mean, the guy who's heading the sector now is, Dr. Hans Vijay Surya, right? I mean, he's a man who really knows his work. So thing is, make use of them, make a grand plan and go for something which will have an impact on the economy. Like, it will be a driving force. The thing is, you just going and, doing a small project here, small project there, small project there, that's not going to fix it. Obviously, doing that is good. I'm not saying no. But the thing is, you need to do something landmark. That is something which I feel is lacking from this government. And the other problem what I see is, for example, the revenue has come in. Okay, they're not spending, that's okay. But then again, you get a lot of state-owned enterprises which are running at a loss. Now, for example, the
Sri Lankan Airlines.
Yesterday, Sri Lankan Airlines, it just put out, I think, 11 billion or something, a loss. Right? So, how much more are you going to go taking public money and pumping into these deadbeats? Right? Either you have to completely reform it.
So, but what if, Riyad, what if you can't sell Sri Lankan Airlines? What if nobody is buying this debt-ridden state institutions? Then what do you do? No.
So the thing is, there are 2 options. No, if you take Sri Lankan Airlines, if you're giving Sri Lankan Airlines, there are 3 parts to it. You get the airline, that's the air operation. You have the ground handling, which is kind of making money, and you have catering, which is making money. Ground handling is a monopoly, catering is a monopoly. Right? And probably that's the reason why they're making money also. Right? If that was liberalized, maybe things would be different from that angle also. So if you're doing it, you need to sell it as a package. You have to bring it to an airline. Now the problem with Sri Lankan Airlines is, since you went into it, I'll just talk about it a little bit more. Sri Lankan Airlines was viable, or the operating model was viable maybe 25-30 years ago. The simple reason was, if you go back in the day when Emirates was here, they had to come to this part of the world for refueling if they're going to Australia or to the Far East. The simple reason was the aircrafts didn't have the range. Because the current airlines, you have heard, no record flight, 18-hour flight, 19-hour flight. So currently airline, and now you get the plane. Now, for example, you get the Boeing 777. Something called ER and the LR. ER is the extended range, LR is the long range. So you get variants which are made for particular routes. So under that circumstances, you don't have to bypass. You can bypass Colombo and fly direct. For example, to Melbourne from Qatar or from Dubai to Melbourne or Sydney or whatever, right? Same to Japan, same to Hong Kong and all that, they can do that. So the thing is that business model viability has gone off. Same thing with, for example, the Hambantota harbour. They used to say, all the ships go past us, and if we had the facility, they can come and refuel. I don't think that is a viable option, because the reason is most of the ships that come now are the Panamaxes and the Super Panamaxes. Generally, they can reach their final destination on a full tank. So that's what I'm saying. The economic model in the last 25 years has changed. So currently, Sri Lankan Airlines is leveraged like nothing. I mean, assets are, I think, about 200 billion, and I think the debt is about 650 billion. Right? So the thing is, selling that with the debt is completely, nobody's going to take it. Either the treasury has to take the complete debt burden and go on a fresh start and tell someone, you come and take the whole thing and run it, or you have to basically change your model and go with a different model. For example, it can be a budget carrier. Now, Sri Lankan tried a budget carrier model also. No, remember, it was Mean Airlines. Oddly, that was the only budget carrier in the world that had a business class. So you understand the thing, no? So the thing is, they have to get their model right. You can't just do a business for the sake of doing it and expect the taxpayer to keep on paying it over and over again. And most of the people who pay taxes are the people, let alone not gone in aircraft, let alone not even seen BIA. Right? So it's not fair on the general public that, just to keep, some would say national pride, some would say certain other things. But the thing is, just to keep that going, it doesn't make any sense, because the reason is people are paying taxes through their nose now, right? And at what point can they go? I mean, now I'm just going to ask. Normally, you ask the questions. I'm going to ask you a question, right? At what next can they tax, right? I mean, if you are,
but I think the president has made it quite clear that he's not going to increase any more taxes. At least take him at his word.
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So the thing is that's another part, because the other part is to not tax anymore, and for the economy to do well, economy has to grow. Where is the growth coming? Because currently, okay, of course, we have beaten the the IMF expectations and the World Bank expectations and all that. We are growing at around 4.5 now. But the thing is, we had to grow at least 6.5%. And for that to happen, you need to get the reforms to go. Because one thing, the government, you have to give them full credit, is they got the taxing, they got it right. The fiscal side, they got it right. And basically, and they didn't mess with the previous government's plan also. They just continued with it. So, which was a very good and very brave thing for them to do, right? And all credit to them. Now the thing is, they have to check and see, okay, where are we going to cut the expenses? Expenses are, for example, like what we just spoke about, the loss-making SOEs, the loss-making institutions. What are you going to do with them, right? So that is number one. And the third option is you need to go for growth. So growth means you need to hit about 7%. When you hit that 7%, the compounding effect of that will bring in the revenue. Because when you go at 7%, that means the businesses are doing, they're flourishing, more vehicles will be imported, more stuff will be imported, more things will be exported.
So it's a domino effect.
It's a domino effect. So you need to go for the high growth, but to go to the high growth, you need to go and do the reforms which are critical for Sri Lanka's economy.
So we'll cross over to a short commercial break, and we'll bring you more details on the other side, especially regarding Sri Lanka's vehicle market, of course, which a lot of people are interested in these days. Stay tuned. You're watching Face to Face.
Newsfirst, Face to Face with Shalan Benedict.
ඔයා මගේ දුව වර්ගන යන්නේ නැහනේ. අපෝ නෑ. එයා කොහොමත් ඔයාගේ දුව තමයි.
කෙල්ලෙකුට ආදරය කරන්න කලින් තමන්ගේ අම්මගේ හැඟීම් තේරුම් අරන් ඉඳින්න. ආලෝක ගීත ගිහිල්ලා තියෙන අක්කලා ගෙදර ඉන්න ගෑනුලා.
නිම්සරට්?
තනු?
සංසාරා අද රාත්‍රී 9:30ට සිරස ටෙලිතිරයෙන්
බල හවුලේ ඉඳලා ගේම් දීලා එකට හිටගත් එකා පාවලා දෙන්න එපා පොඩ්ඩ බැරිච්ච ගමන්.
මගේ ඇස්මානෙන් එහා තියෙන කිසි දෙයකට පැටලෙන්න එපා. මට පේන මානේ ඉන්න.
ලොකු විස්තරයක් තියෙනවා ඔයාට කියන්න. ෆෝන් එකෙන් කතා කරන්න අමාරුයි.
ඉතින් අම්මා එන්න.
මම බොළඳ කෙල්ලෙක් කාලේ කොල්ලෙකුට ආදරය කරා. ඒක ඒ කාලෙම ඉවර වුණා. තාමත් මං ආදරය කියලා හිතනවා නම් ඒක වගේ මෝඩකම සහ.
එර ජයලා.
අද රාත්‍රී 9ට සිරස ටෙලිතිරයෙන්.
Newsfirst, Face to Face with Shalan Benedict.
Welcome back. You're watching Face to Face. We're in discussion with Riyad Riffai, Director of Advocata. Riyad, we promised our viewers that we will speak about Sri Lanka's car market, car imports. A lot of people are very interested in purchasing a new car. Now, there have been concerns raised by car importers because the government is now going to slap an additional 15% tariff on vehicles that have been imported into Sri Lanka but not sold within a span of 3 months. So technically there were initially tariff, different tiers that were announced on engine sizes. And then if you haven't sold it in 3 months and if it hasn't been registered, now there's going to be a 15% increase. And vehicle importers say that prices might shoot up to a point where it's no longer affordable for Sri Lankans to purchase vehicles. What's the truth in that? What's the inside out of this?
So the thing is, like, for example, if you take any person who has imported a vehicle and not registered,
Okay.
right? So it goes on quarter to quarter.
Okay.
So every quarter it's going to be 3% to a maximum of 45%.
It's 3%.
It's 3% every quarter.
Okay. Okay.
This is something I don't think that has come out that well. The thing is, now, for example, let's say you bring a vehicle on, let's say you bought it on June 30th.
Okay.
And 3 months later, so it's July, August, September, October 1st, you'll be charged 3%.
Okay.
Right? Then the next 3 months, right? When you finish the next 3 months, you'll be charged 3% again. So every quarter, it's blocked on a quarter. So every 3 months, there is going to be 3%.
Okay. Okay.
And to a maximum of 45%.
Okay.
So that is the reason why you see a steep decline in prices also, not steep decline, we say decline in prices, because the reason is the importers who have bought it down, now they are running through, they are bleeding, they are gutted. So what they are doing is they are going for deep discounts and they just want to get rid of the inventory.
Okay.
So I spoke to one of the gentlemen from the Car Importers Association. What he said was basically currently the guys even at a loss, they are willing to basically to cash out.
Okay.
Because the reason is they are saying one thing is there is an inventory cost. I mean, when you run a business, there is inventory cost where you have to pay interest on the debt that you take to purchase the vehicle, right? That is one. Second one is again this particular penalty which they have to pay. So they are saying put that together, basically they are going to bleed out. So they have two options. One thing is like what we discussed earlier is one thing is maybe they can actually re-export it, but I'm not sure if that is a viable option because the reason is even the prices in Japan have slightly come down.
Okay.
So the prices what these guys have bought the vehicles, the importers, is slightly higher than actually the price in Japan. So it's going to be a double whammy for them. Then you have to think about the shipping cost, insurance cost, right? All that logistics that comes into it. So they are going to completely bleed out. So they are in a bit of a catch-22 situation. They are in they are not in a
what's the logic behind this 3% additional tax every quarter? What's the logic behind that?
So previously the people who have imported vehicles, what they do is they import a large quantity, they release it slowly into the market.
Okay.
Right. And they
to maintain prices.
To maintain prices.
Understood.
So, but one thing with all credit to the government, they told this in well in advance. They said if you import vehicles into the country and you hold the inventory for more than 3 months, you're going to be penalized. It was very clearly communicated to them. So I don't find much fault with the government because it was communicated. It wasn't not something like a midnight gazette where they suddenly, they put a gazette out the next day saying, okay, this is the new law. No, this was communicated well in advance. So I think what has happened is from some of the people that I have spoken to, what they said was you get three types of categories of imports.
Did they overestimate the demand?
They overestimated the demand, right? And what happened is because other thing is they overestimated the affordability. A lot of people actually want to buy a new car, but still the prices are too high. Because in Sri Lanka, what happens is in Sri Lanka for the car buyer, there's a double whammy. One thing is the vehicle prices because of the taxation is very high. That is number one. Second is the lease amount what you pay is very high. Now, for example, if you go to the UK or to the Western world, your interest percentage would be about 2.5 to 3%, which is very affordable, right? And plus the vehicles are cheaper. But in Sri Lanka, what happens is, I mean, the going rate now, I don't know how much it is, but normally it's about 3 to 4 times of what the...
And then you get an overdue interest component on top of that.
Exactly, right? So it's a really bad
vicious cycle.
It's a really vicious and bad cycle that you're stuck in. So that was one part, and that was one part, and we were actually expecting that at Advocata. Even at another forum, we actually said that we are not very robust about this thing. That probably there's going to be oversupply. And the second part is there is generally 3 titles of people who actually import vehicles. The first categories are the agents, right? Agents, so basically the Toyotas and all that. Then the second category is the registered private importers. Then you get a third category of people like you and I.
Personal.
We import a vehicle, personal import. And what happens is the personal import doesn't become personal. It goes into a car sale.
Okay.
So if you look at we have asked for the stats, but we still haven't got it. But the thing is, if you look at the third category is huge, which nobody talks about.
It's huge.
It's huge.
Okay.
Right. So what happens is that set of cars also go into the circulation, and that creates the oversupply, because normally the car importers generally they know, okay, these are the number of vehicles you need to bring down. But of course, they also have been guilty of overstocking and underselling, and to maintain prices, which is something they have done in the past. So all these things put together, and plus on top of that the leasing arrangement, it simply didn't work. Now, for example, if you take a vehicle which is, let's say, I think one of the, I mean, if you look at a decent sized vehicle, it's about 10 million, right? So 10 million vehicle, how many people can actually afford the lease? Right? I mean, the what you call the leasing facility is only given for 60%. So 40% you need to put upfront. That is there. And plus the people who take that, you know, the people of that age category, probably before that they have a housing loan that is running. Right? So what do you prioritize? There are only few people who can afford both. What do you prioritize? Do you prioritize the house or do you prioritize the car? So all that, you know, so this is like a complete muddled up, you know, calculation that you need to go to figure out what the actual demand is. But you let the market decide, and in a way it's good that the market has also adjusted, because this is something, this kind of shenanigan actually has happened in the past. So currently the people who are importing and the people who are in the business also have learned a lesson. They have learned, okay, don't bring and just dump and try to control the price.
Was that the situation before this?
I mean, the thing is, there are a lot of factors that go into this. Now, for example, if interest rates really go up, then it has a domino, it has impact on, for example, demand, because nobody can afford the lease. Because then the lease, because normally in Sri Lanka, the lease payments are calculated on a practical sense. It's done on per 100,000. Right? So per 100,000, is it how much? 2,500, 3,000, 2,000, whatever, right? So it depends on the category of vehicle you're going to buy. So on top of that, that is one. Then you get the other additional things that come. No? Like when you buy a car, let's say, because in Sri Lanka what happens is people go and, you know, they leverage to the hilt and they buy. And then what happens is, you know, after a while you get the repairs, then you have to maintain the vehicle, and you get sudden unexpected personal expenses that have come. I mean, it can be anything, can be a medical issue and all that. That really puts you down. So that has been another issue. So some of these guys who have bought down private also, probably they also put a leverage. That is one part. And the third part, there's another component into this. That's what I'm saying. This car import category is a really, it's a completely, you know, spider's web when it comes to, you know, actually figuring out how the whole system works. There's another category, because the private imports and plus some of the corporates that bring money, it attracts a lot of grey money that comes, because as you know, Sri Lanka's grey economy is quite big. Right? And some of that grey money goes into that, because for example, if you take all the vehicles that have been imported up to now, it's well over, including the taxes, it's well over $2 billion. Where did the $2 billion come from? Right? It can't be, definitely it can't be.
So are you saying that money is coming from, like, you know, private safes in houses, or this is already in circulation in the banking system? No?
Possibly. So the thing is, there is money already in circulation. Then there are people who traditionally hold money in cash at home or various places, right? And that money also comes in, because what normally happens is, one thing is that money when it goes into circulation, one thing is it can generate more money, because one thing is, traditionally a car import generally has used to be very profitable. This is the first time I think anyone has expected where the car industry, the importers are actually selling vehicles on par or selling it below cost. So this is a new experience to everyone.
That's one of the reasons why our parliamentarians used to sell their permits and
exactly, right?
Quite profitable.
Quite profitable, because, you know, there was a huge demand. So what happened was, I think the guys who import the vehicles, because one thing, the agents normally, they don't know, you know, the agents, they normally bring it down on order. And they might bring about 10-15% in, you know, in excess, because they know these guys are walk-in customers. They'll just come, pay the cash, or they'll put a lease and they'll take it and go. So the agents category, what they operate is a different story. And the other one is, this time I think the agents also have been quite smart. I think they have been pricing it also quite aggressive. Yeah, I think reasonably aggressive. I think the pricing has been quite aggressive. And there's another funny twist in this whole thing, right? Is when you import a vehicle, and normally the private importers, they don't bring down brand new vehicles, or very seldomly they do. Normally what they do is they buy it from the second hand market within 3 years or something, and they bring it down. Because in Japan there is a rule where if a vehicle is brand new, I'm talking about a Japanese citizen buys a vehicle in Japan, if the vehicle is within 3 years, he doesn't have to do a health certificate. After 3 years, he has to do it. So in Japan, the normal practice is, after 3 years, they sell their car and they go for a new one.
Okay.
So so those vehicles are within 3 years. Those are the vehicles that come to Sri Lanka. So, but the issue is, when an agent sends a car here, the agent's invoice amount is the amount where the tax calculation is done. When a private importer brings it, even if the vehicle is 3 years old, they will go to the website, check what the manufacturer's price is, and they will base the tax on that.
Okay.
So
are you saying the same car that is technically second hand, imported into Sri Lanka, will be taxed differently for the agent and the private importer?
I wouldn't say tax differently. It's actually the tax amount what they say pay is virtually the same.
Okay.
So, for example, I mean, I know this is very confusing because even I was shocked when I first heard this. Like, let's say, two identical cars, one is through an agent, identical options, identical features. Let's say, even for argument's sake,
manufactured on the same date.
Same date. Let's say manufactured on the same date, and it can't be same date because that is maybe 2 or 3 years older.
Okay.
Right, but it's the same car. Maybe one particular model, because we can't go into brands. No, one particular model, right? So when they bring the vehicles down, the tax rate probably will be that the amount of taxes that goes into the government will be the same.
Oh, you're saying on the brand new and the second hand?
Second hand. Because
same.
Because the brand new is taxed on the invoice value of the agent, because that's a customs ordinance.
Okay.
But a privately imported vehicle, let's say it's 2 or 3 years older, because you can't bring anything over 3 years. That would be normally the age that vehicles come is about 2 years, 2+ years, right? So that would be taxed. The tax amount what goes into the government coffers from both the vehicles is the same.
Okay.
Let's say the tax rate, just for argument's sake, let's say it's $1 million for the vehicle that was bought by the agent.
Brand new.
It's still $1 million for the same identical car that is bought down by the listing, which is probably about over 2 years old.
Okay.
Right? Because how they make the tax calculation is they go to the website of that particular respective car manufacturer. They'll check this thing and check what is the sticker price. Yeah, not the market value. What is the sticker price of that car?
Okay.
And they will make the calculation accordingly.
Okay.
So I know it's a very weird.
Doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, so when it comes to the private vehicle import, it's kind of unfair on them also, and it's kind of unfair on the consumer also, because you're bringing your older vehicle, which you are getting taxed at the same rate as a brand new vehicle. So because of that also, I think there's been a market shift where the the agents also, I think, aggressively priced it, and I think they have also done their marketing part. So because of that, I think most of the agents also, they got quite a bit of the business, and some of the brand new buyers also went to the agents.
So just to bring a finality on this conversation regarding vehicles, I think what the general public is really concerned about is will the vehicle prices shoot up drastically, or will it come down? Will it remain? What's your prediction?
So there are, it's not a simple answer. So for all three, there are three answers. One thing is all depends on what happens on the budget. So irrespective of the budget.
Considering, say, under the presumption that the
budget
current
is
tax
neutral
regimes, all of these remain as it is.
Right. Okay. So one thing is, I mean, looking at, because currently what we feel is there's about a 15 to 20% oversupply, maybe at least a 15% oversupply. So if that is the case, then currently with the problems that they are facing, they are going for aggressive sale.
So they're going to go down.
That is what, I mean,
that's what's happening right now.
That's what's currently happening, and I think it will go to a particular point, but I don't know what the breaking point is going to be.
Okay.
But if you look at the current scenario, and especially with that 3%, which I don't think a lot of people even know that it's 3 months, 3% every 3 months or every quarter. I mean, you don't have a choice now. For example, let's say you're doing a business, you're a car salesman. What would your first priority be? Just getting rid of the stock. So you
cut my losses.
Cut your losses, exactly. So the thing is, what they have to do is they will try to bring the prices down much as possible. They will probably negotiate a lot with the leasing companies and all to put out very lucrative leasing options and all that, and try to get rid of the stock. I mean, that's the logical person. That's what a logical person would do. And I think these people are logical people. They will do that. There's a second option of re-exporting, but I don't think the treasury also will be too thrilled about that, because then they'll have to give back the money. So I don't think the treasury will be too thrilled about that. Or there is another option where they have gone and appealed to the treasury. They will reconsider and probably stop the 3%.
I think there's also a matter pending in the Court of Appeal also with regard to this. As far as the reports that have come to me, I don't think the Treasury is looking at it very, very, very progressively as to give that rebate off. But of course, they can decide otherwise as and when time progresses. We're in the final few minutes of the program, Riyad. Just let us know, what are you expecting from this budget? What would you prefer the government to do? I mean, there might be many things that you want the government to go on, but maybe 3 key areas.
Right. So there are 3 areas what I'll look at is, for example, one major challenge is, because if you look at growth and how much the economies have progressed. For example, if you go back to 1948, where Sri Lanka is now and all the other countries that are now, right? Now, for example, in 1948, Sri Lanka was the second biggest economy in Asia. Only Japan surpassed us.
Okay.
Now, basically, every other economy has basically overtaken us.
Okay.
Right? So, the thing is, then you have to figure out, okay, you are not competing with the world, you are probably competing with a few countries around you, right?
Countries are at our level.
At our level. Now, for example, if someone thinks that, you're competing with India, no, you're not. I mean, India is a 1.3 billion,
fifth largest economy.
Fifth largest economy in the world, and about to be the fourth largest. They are on a different path, right? No, they have, and their economy has flourished in the last 10 years. So we are not competing with any of that. Our competition would be, for example, my pick would be, it would be Thailand tourism, Maldives tourism, Vietnam tourism and apparel, and Bangladesh apparel. That's where we are competing. So we have to figure out what are we going to do. Now, for example, if you look at tourism.
What about FDIs?
So the thing is, if you get the policies right, the FDIs would automatically come. The FDIs.
So you don't have to compete, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So we need to compete. So we need to get, for example, if you look at that, one thing that I would expect in this government, if they can, is to get rid of the cess and the PAL. Right, which makes no sense, right? Now, for example, the construction, we'll just go through, right? If you look at the tourism industry, the biggest cost in tourism industry is the hotel. It's the actual physical hotel, right? Hotels are completely what you call in financial terms, the expense is front loaded because you have to make the hotel completely, you can't make it half and run. Right? There are some industries where you can go, you can invest as you grow. Hotel you can't. You have to invest 100% upfront. It's completely front loaded, and then you need to run the hotel maybe for 6 months. You need to run with a skeleton just to make sure that the staff, the kitchen, everything kind of gels together. So it's a very heavily front loaded industry. And Sri Lankan hotels, to manufacture a hotel, and Sri Lanka will be competing with, for example, Vietnam and Thailand. Thailand cement is half the price.
Okay.
Right? I mean, there is a company that operates in Thailand and in Sri Lanka. It's the same brand and all. In Thailand, it's about 50% cheaper.
Okay.
Right. So that means, in Sri Lanka, we have high taxes on steel, on tiles, on sanitary ware. These are the basic things that goes to manufacture a hotel. Right. So when there was a study that was done by us, what we came was like between 30 to 40% building a hotel in Sri Lanka is actually more expensive, which means you're not competitive. Right. So, for example, if a huge hotel chain is coming to the country, okay, Sri Lanka has the diversity, has the beaches, has the hills, has everything. But the problem is, end of the day, they look at something called ROI. So the ROI, to get the ROI, there are certain things in taxation that has to come down, because if those things don't come down, you can't help the hotel industry. Like that, for example, if you go into the apparel sector, again, this cess, the SVAT and all that, is completely muddling the system up. So you need to make sure that, you're doing your policies to basically help the industries which are actually driving the growth. Now, if you look at the current scenario, apparel is a massive, that's the biggest exporter in the country. Second is probably tourism that brings in money. So those two ones, it's critical. I'm just giving two examples. Like that, the other one is IT. We talk a lot about IT. And if you remember, during the crisis, the guys who owned IT companies, they all shifted to other countries. Right? The simple reason why they did that was their credit cards didn't work. Now, some people will say, this is funny, what do you mean by credit cards not working? At that time, none of the credit cards worked. The reason is they couldn't take money out of their dollar accounts and pay for services like servers, which are hosted in another country. Now, for example, let's say you're an IT company, right? Let's say I'm doing IT company and my servers are in another country. There are other expenses, software licensing expenses which I have to make, which I can't do it from here. So what they do is, with the IT industry, the stickiness to the economy is very low. So they are the first people to, basically pack up and leave. So these are the problems that have to be addressed. And then the other one is, like, for example, on banking system and all that, the government has to understand that the money that is in private banks is their money. It's a money of businesses and all that. It's not the government's money. So during the last crisis, they basically blanketed everyone. So because of that, we basically completely the whole IT industry basically collapsed. There were some very good IT entrepreneurs that were there. They just packed up and went to Singapore and Dubai and other places, because the reason is because they simply couldn't operate here, not because of anything. So those are the policies there to see, because before you do anything, you need to consult with the industry and make a decision. Because what happens is, if you don't consult the relevant industry before you make a decision, then at best you are doing the wrong decision. At worst you are doing at
You're
worst
taking
you are
the
done a
industry
disaster.
several decades back.
Absolutely. So that's what I'm saying. Now, for example, you're looking at ICT and all that. To do all that, there are certain enablers which you need to bring here. Right? You have to tell them exactly in future, you have to tell them, listen, or you have to give them the option, listen, okay, you're operating in Sri Lanka. I know Sri Lanka might go through a crisis again. We never know, because these are countries that has gone through crisis over and over again. Then you have to allow them, okay, you can have a foreign account where you keep your money there, part of it, and then if you have some problem, you can pay it from there. So some sort of a solution has to come from the government. Government has to be the enabler. Problem in Sri Lanka, what happens is, where the government starts competing directly with businesses. I mean, you see that, I mean, for example, we run airlines, we have banks, we have insurance companies, and the rules and regulations for those things are different. For example, all local financial institutions have to be listed. State ones are not listed. People's Bank is not listed. Bank of Ceylon is not listed.
They have separate legislation that governs there.
Exactly. So you can't, you need to have a level playing field. Now, for example, until recently, all private insurance companies, the general and the life insurance have to be separate.
Yes.
Right. But the biggest insurance company in the country is SLIC.
But that's also separate now.
Now it's separate, because things, thank God, it's split, but at one point it was together, even though the other companies had split.
I think that was an ongoing case.
There you go.
Well, thank you very much, Riyad Riffai, Director of Advocata, for shedding light on this very broad area. Of course, there hasn't been enough discourse, I believe, regarding the budget for the year 2026. I think people are very busy with other matters, other developments in Sri Lanka's political sector, as well as Sri Lanka's national security sector, as far as the general public are concerned, that has kind of taken their attention. But of course, we can expect more discussions on the budget and how it will affect the general public of Sri Lanka, your lives specifically, the decisions that the government make, how they will reflect on your day-to-day lives. And we are ready to bring you the details of this. Thank you very much, Riyad, again for joining us on our program. Thank you very much to all our viewers out there for tuning in to another episode of Face to Face. Until we meet again, take care and God bless.
Newsfirst, face to face with Shalan Benedict.